Hello, Helaman's Army, and everyone else willing to watch my videos. I appreciate you being here and listening. For those of you who have not been to my channel before, welcome. Thank you for being here. Most of the time, I spend a lot of time trying to get people to share, doing interviews, getting people to share their testimonies. I do regular video quotes from LDS General Conferences. The current General Conference, those are always shorts. They end up on the short side of my the channel here. But I also spend a lot of time studying older General Conference talks and older General Conference reports. I really love the older General Conferences. They really pulled me out of a slump a while back, and I've just never been able to. I just read them all the time because they mean a lot to me. And they spoke differently back then. They spoke differently in the 50s and 60s than they did in the 20s and in the teens, the 19 teens. They spoke differently, before the 1900s, and just the way that the leadership, the prophets of the church, prophets of the Restoration, spoke to the people in their own unique way. So they speak differently to me. They hit different, and they sound different to me. They teach the same principles, and they talk about the same things in most cases, not in all cases, but in most cases they talk about the same things. But sometimes I need that very direct and very, no nonsense conversation from the older General Conference talks that we don't always get from the newer ones. And unless you've really taken the dive into these, stuff before 1970, then you really don't get that as much. Clearly in the 1970s and 80s, they were very straightforward and very direct, but it seems that General Conferences have softened a little in the tone and the way that they speak to us, which is fine. I think that's a cultural thing mostly, but partly also because it's what we need right now. So they clearly are teaching us in the way that we need to be taught. Anyway, 85th SemiAnnual General Conference. This was in October of 1914. This was the first General Conference after the beginning of World War I. And this General Conference has been fantastic. It's been a wonderful read. I've enjoyed it so much. And I'm not going to talk. I did one video about Charles Penrose gave a prayer for peace, and I'll put a link in the description below for that video. But this General Conference was largely about prayer and about peace and about basically about getting yourselves right with God. Because that's how you get peace in the world. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video is peace in the world. But before I dive into this, I actually want to share with everyone how to find these older General Conference talks, these older General Conferences. So if you do desire, you're welcome. You can go download these for yourself. So if you go to archive, they're all on archive.org. I believe they're on the LDS Church catalog as well, the catalog.lds.org. I know it's not the LDS website anymore. It's Church of Jesus Christ, but it's so much faster to type in archive.lds.org. I still do it. It still redirects me. It puts me where I want to go. Probably not the right thing to do, but it works. If it works, as long as it works, I'm using it because it's quick. Anyway, archive.org is a lot easier to search than the LDS catalog. Way easier to search. But if you go on archive.org and just search for LDS General Conference talks, you're going to get frustrated. So if you go to Google and search archive.org LDS Conference reports, it'll show up as, for me, it shows up as the second link on the page. LDS Conference report. So that's how you find them. Go there. There's a lot of things that are available from the church, and I'm gonna click on one of these. And if you click on this link to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you see this one's from 1898. Anyway, if you go to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and click on it, it'll show you everything that has been uploaded by the church. And over here on the left, there's there is the Millennial Star, the Improvement Era. There's a bunch of stuff. LDS Church Magazines, Church History Library. There's a bunch of things available on archive.org. It's a wonderful resource, and so just wanted to share that with everybody, let you know it's out there that for you to use, and I use it all the time. So really wonderful. I would recommend just jumping right in there and using it because it's fantastic. Okay, 1914 General Conference. So what I really wanted to cover today was Joseph F. Smith's closing remarks. So back in the day, it was, the prophet would get up and give the opening remarks, and then give the closing remarks, so they'd get a double whammy. And I'm not going to cover all of these closing remarks. They give us a nice little summary at the top of President Joseph F. Smith, of his closing address. He talks about conquering sin in self and assisting others in war against evil, truth and justice, the foundation of peace, and blessings of peace invoked upon the saints. He ends with sisters admonished to be exemplary in dress, etc. I'm not going to cover that today. We just had a very good general conference in April 2024 discussing the need to wear the temple garment. I think that should cover it. And I don't want to cause women to be posting comments about this and that. It seems straightforward to me. If you can wear it and your garments aren't showing, perfect, great. So that's my opinion. And that's all I'm going to say about that. And then I'm going to move on here. But let's dive in. So I'm going to read this little first section. It's a long paragraph, but I'm going to read it anyway, and then dive into some other resources that match up with this. I feel very grateful for the excellent peace and spirit which has pervaded all our meetings. It is true, we are all engaged in a warfare, and all of us should be valiant warriors in the cause in which we are engaged. Our first enemy we will find within ourselves. It is a good thing to overcome that enemy first, and bring ourselves into subjection to the will of the Father, and into strict obedience to the principles of life and salvation which He has given to the world for the salvation of men. When we shall have conquered ourselves, it will be well for us to wage our war without against false teachings, false doctrines, false customs, habits, and ways, against error, unbelief, the follies of the world that are so prevalent, and against infidelity and false science under the name of science, and every other thing that strikes at the foundations of the principles set forth in the doctrine of Christ for the redemption of men and salvation of their souls. Now, within that one paragraph, Joseph F. Smith gives us a lot. When he gets into this list of things that we should be warring against, he gives us a lot to discuss. But I'm not going to touch on every single one of those specifically, but I am going to start by touching on a couple of those up front. We will start with a quote from, and we're going to talk about this idea of fighting the enemy within ourselves, getting rid of that first. Jordan Peterson, in his book Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life, and I believe it was, well, let's read this quote first. 12 More Rules for Life. If you confront the suffering and malevolence, and if you do that truthfully and courageously, you are stronger, your family is stronger, and the world is a better place. The alternative is resentment, and that makes everything worse. And I believe I wrote this quote down, but I didn't write where it came from, and I know it was Jordan Peterson said that the best way to change the world is first remove the malevolence from your own heart. Like I said, I don't remember. I know it was Jordan Peterson that said it. I don't remember where he said it from. And then there's a Neil A. Maxwell quote out of a book that he wrote called That Ye May Believe. And the only church resource which I know has it quoted is this talk from BYU. And this was, I'm highlighting it so it'll be easier for me to get there. Michael P. Thompson on his talk of Who Will Bear Reproof. This was given in July 9th, 2002. If you'd like to read this or listen to this. But the quote from Neil A. Maxwell is this: "Behold the natural man, selfish, impatient, short-tempered, easily offended, unforgiving, proud, envious, covetous, carnal, and drenched in ego. No wonder he is to be put off." Again, that was Neil A. Maxwell in his book That Ye May Believe. I actually read that book on my mission, and this is like one of those confessions. Like, when you're a missionary, there's books you're not supposed to read. You're supposed to read books that are approved by the church. But I read this book anyway on my mission because it became available to me, and I needed to read this book on my mission, and I needed to read this quote specifically. The first time I read this quote, I immediately thought of somebody else, and I felt really justified in myself. Oh man, that guy, he fits this description right on. And then I felt, and I read it again. Behold the natural man. And then it hurt. Selfish, and it hurt more. Impatient, and it hurt even more. Short-tempered, easily offended, unforgiving, proud, envious, covetous, carnal, and drenched in ego. No wonder he is to be put off. It pierced me to the soul. This was a quote that changed my life and changed the way I looked at myself. This is the beginning of me removing the malevolence from my heart. This is the beginning of me fighting the enemy within. And this was the beginning of me realizing how selfish and impatient and short-tempered and easily offended and unforgiving and proud and envious and covetous and carnal and drenched in ego I really was. And to this day, I still find things that fall into these categories. And every once in a while, I go through periods where I have issues with one or the other of these little this list. But it's the list. These are the things I work on quite a bit. And Neil A. Maxwell gave a wonderful talk on selfishness in General Conference. I don't remember which year it was, but I remember reading it and I remember quoting from it. But his talk on selfishness is fantastic. If you have a chance, I'd recommend reading it. But we're not talking about that one. We're talking about Joseph F. Smith, 1914. So let's go back to that. If I get my computer, I'm still learning how to use this software, so I'm a little slower at it. But here we are, 1914. So then he says, after we conquer ourselves, it's well for us to wage war without, against false teachings, false doctrines, false customs, habits and ways, against error, unbelief, the follies of the world that are so prevalent, and against infidelity. And I'm going to stop right there and go to that point. So all of those things, every single one of those things, the false teachings, false doctrines, false customs, habits, every single one of those is addressed in teaching the correct doctrine and principles of the fullness of the gospel of Jesus Christ as restored in our day. Every single one of those, when you teach the fullness of the gospel, when you teach the sanctification through the Holy Spirit, when you teach the following the commandments of God, when you teach all of these things, these are the things that fight against those specifically. It's interesting. I've had quite a few conversations recently online about tithing, and tithing it's not easy. Number one, it's not easy. Number two, it is the one commandment that I can quantify. Like, I mean, how do you quantify that? Thou shalt love thy God. How do you quantify loving your neighbor? It's as somebody with as an engineer, I like things that I can put in boxes and I can count them, right? The tithing is something that I can quantify, and I can guarantee that I meet that tithing requirement at 100%. I know that I can say I 100% follow this commandment all the way. And I've had a few conversations online about this, and I'm going to just straight out say it. If you are not willing to pay your 10%, it's because straight up, and I'm not trying to be offensive, I'm just trying to tell you this, it's the way it is, that you just don't have enough faith. You got to give God the opportunity. He tells us in Malachi chapter 3 that he will open up the windows of heaven. And I can tell you that the windows of heaven are huge. Now, I didn't even plan on diving into tithing on this video, but exercise that faith. Try it out. This is the, and he tells us we can test him on pretty much everything, but this is the one that's quantifiable. This is the one that you can say, I met the requirement. And once you're a full tithe payer, and I've done this, I've actually knelt down and said a prayer and said, look, I'm paying my tithing, and this is what I need. I need you to take care of this physical item for me, because I don't know how else to do it. And you know what? It got taken care of. And to this day, I'm extremely grateful for everyone that was involved. But there have been multiple times where I've basically set my tithing out and prayed over it and said, God, this is my 10%. You know it. I am paying 10%. And I need you to fill up this remaining for me. I need you to fill the bucket that I can't fill by myself. And it fills itself. It's amazing. So anyway, teach the doctrine, teach the true doctrines, teach, and all of those other things will go away. So this, let's see, where did I stop? Against infidelity. Okay. And false science under the name of science. Oh, I don't even know where to begin on this one, because we just had a situation in our society, in our world, where false science was pushed under the name of real science, where we threw out the scientific method and we followed one individual. That was the most ridiculous thing I think we've ever done. And you see false science all over the place, everywhere. False science is a serious problem that we face, where, the results are catered to we know the outcome before we even start the experiment. That's not what it's supposed to be. And I'm not going to dive too much into that, but I will tell you that in 1941 General Conference, J. Reuben Clark, he's talking about communism, but this is applicable to pretty much everything. He says, "Be careful of what you read and what you read and hear. Not everything." It basically says everything is propaganda. I'll have to find that quote and pull it up. It's a really good quote. It gets used pretty often, but it's a great quote. False science, the name of science, and every other thing that strikes at the foundations of the principles set forth in the doctrine of Christ for the redemption of men and the salvation of their souls. Again, preaching true doctrine of Jesus Christ. Faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. Repentance. Baptism by immersion by one having authority. And then confirmation for the gift of the Holy Ghost by one having authority. Let's move on. Okay. Now this long paragraph here, I'm just going to go on the one on the left. It's got the double column thing going on. So, just so you guys can keep track. He said, we should war against covetousness, against pride, vanity, haughtiness of spirit, against self-sufficiency, and imagined or supposed almighty power that some people think they possess. So, all of those things against covetousness, pride, vanity, haughtiness of spirit, those are all those things that are that were talked about in that Neil A. Maxwell quote from his book That You May Believe. Behold the natural man. Against self-sufficiency. Now this one, I had to read into this one a little bit because I don't believe he's talking about, preparedness. I'm positive he's not talking about preparedness here. He's talking about spiritual situations. You don't have to do spiritual stuff on your own. And matter of fact, if you're trying to do this all on your own, it's time to reach out to somebody else. And you're welcome to reach out to me. I know that that's been an offer from other folks, but if you are feeling like you're drowning in the spiritualness of this world, you can reach out to me. My email is it's in my about page in the about section of this YouTube channel, but it is Helaman's Army at proton.me. Proton.me is the suffix there. But yeah, don't feel like you've got to do this alone. Okay, so, self-sufficient and imagined or supposed almighty power that some people think they possess. So this is the imagined or supposed almighty power. Oh, where could we dive in on that? Intellectualism is a big problem, especially in spiritual matters. Putting yourself above others because, I know so much. People always tell me I'm smart. They're like, hey, what do you do? And I tell them, I'm an engineer. I work at a nuclear power plant. And they're like, oh, you must be really smart. And I laugh and I say, nope, I was just too stupid to quit. That's why I work there. I'm too dumb to stop. I'm too stupid. I was too stupid to quit school. So I just kept going and C's get degrees. Anyway. So moving on. So God is the greatest man of war of all, and his Son is next unto him, and their warfare is for the salvation of souls of men. It would not be necessary for them to use violence or force, or permit their children to use violence nor force in order to conquer, if they wouldn't but humble themselves and obey the truth. For after all, nothing will conquer, nothing will win but the truth. And so far as the wars that are going on in the world are concerned, we not only want to see peace established among the children of men, but also justice, above all things, truth, that justice, peace, and righteousness may be built upon this foundation and not depend upon the covetousness, pride, vanity, evil desire, and lust for power in men. Ooh, there's a lot in there. There's a lot to unwrap. God is the greatest man of war of all, and his Son is next unto him. When Joseph F. Smith says this, I don't believe he's talking about physical war. God is all powerful, right? And his Son Jesus Christ stands right next to him, all powerful. Their ability to bring peace is unmatched, even among the sons of perdition, will cower under their presence. And it doesn't matter, when we talk about when this general conference is really kind of focused on war because that's what was going on. But when we're talking about war, there is no amount of killing. There is no amount of depravity that will ever satisfy the forces of evil. You could kill 1 million people and they'd still want to kill more. It just does not satisfy them in any way. It's not killing, and it's not depravity, and it's not withholding liberty from people that makes someone a great warrior. It is someone who can bring peace is what makes a warrior a great warrior. And there are many times where the wicked get humbled, or if they refuse to be humbled, well, they get dead. And that's very obvious in a war. Unfortunately, there's a lot of there's a lot of innocent folks that suffer the consequences of war as well. It reminds me of Alma and Amulek when they're teaching the gospel in the Book of Mormon. And they see basically the king says, hey, I'm going to start burning people alive if you don't recant what you're telling everyone. And they don't. They say, look, no, this is the gospel of Jesus Christ. And the king starts throwing people into this fire, into the furnace to burn them alive. And such an awful thing to do to people, to throw them into a hot fire. And the innocent are brought up into the arms of God, and they are brought into their peace. That they are given, they're given the salvation that they deserve. And all the sins of the king that did that, man, I'd hate to be that guy at the judgment bar. Man, all those people showing up and being like, yeah, I'm a witness against that dude. Oh, man, that would suck. That's just, I'm not going to get off track here. I was about ready to mention other situations in which people might die, but I'm not going to get off track. So this coincides very clearly with a talk given, and you'll all recognize this talk, or if you're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you'll recognize this talk from President Nelson. Gave this talk, Peacemakers Needed, in April 2023, a year ago. And I'm just going to read this little section, and I'm reading this little section for a reason, because this does not bring peace, right? This is the opposite of what brings peace. Vulgarity, fault-finding, and evil speaking of others are all too common. Too many pundits, politicians, entertainers, and other influencers throw insults constantly. I am greatly concerned that so many people seem to believe that it is completely acceptable to condemn, malign, and vilify anyone who does not agree with them. Many seem eager to damage another's reputation with pathetic and pithy barbs. Anger never persuades. Hostility builds no one. Contention never leads to inspired solutions. Regrettably, we sometimes see contentious behavior even within our own ranks. We hear of those who belittle their spouses and children, of those who use angry outbursts to control others, and of those who punish family members with silent treatment. We hear of youth and children who bully, and of employees who defame their colleagues. My dear brothers and sisters, this should not be. As disciples of Jesus Christ, we are to be examples of how to interact with others, especially when we have differences of opinion. One of the easiest ways to identify a true follower of Jesus Christ is how compassionately that person treats other people. So I bring this up for a reason, mostly because YouTube comments can get pretty nasty. Matter of fact, you'll notice that there's not a lot of nasty YouTube comments on my YouTube channel, and that's because there's a lot of words and phrases that are filtered out immediately. And I also set my comments to the most strict. They're strict moderation. So a lot of comments end up in the held for review section. And as a result, I occasionally get accused of deleting comments. Well, that's because it got held for review because you typed something slanderous in it. I don't appreciate slanderous comments, and I don't appreciate negative comments, and I don't appreciate vulgarity, fault-finding, and evil speaking of others. And that's what we see all the time. I don't appreciate being condemned, maligned, or vilified by anyone. And if you're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I will tell you, do not go onto other people's YouTube channels or social media, anything, and do that to them. Don't do it. Because if you really are a true follower of Jesus Christ, you will be compassionate towards them. Now, if you go out and put a comment asking questions, finding out, maybe trying to find understanding, well, that's completely, absolutely go out and engage with people, but do not get vulgar and do not find fault finding. We have enough of that already. And it's sad to me that people who identify themselves as Christians are so quick to do All of those things. Oh, I'm not going to dive into it too much, but I will tell you this. If you identify yourself as a Christian and you are doing these things, I don't look at you as a Christian. I don't care how many times you tell me that you believe in Jesus Christ. I don't care how many times you tell me you've been saved. If you are this type of person who will be vulgar and fault-finding and evil-speaking and who will condemn and malign and vilify, yeah, you're not a Christian. Sorry. You're not really following Jesus Christ. Anyway, back to the conference report. Joseph F. Smith. Get right to it. Okay. That is what we want, and I pray that the Spirit of the truth may be poured out upon all men, as well as all the spirit of peace. In fact, that we will never have peace until we have truth, and we will never be able to establish peace on earth and goodwill until we have drunk at the fountains of righteousness and eternal truth, as God has revealed it to man. Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly why I started Helaman's Army, this YouTube channel. It's exactly why I do this, is because we will never be able to establish peace on earth and goodwill until we have drunk at the fountains of righteousness and eternal truth, as God has revealed it to man. We cannot have peace on this earth without righteousness. We cannot have liberty without righteousness. There's so many folks out there that'll talk about the Constitution being saved. I'm telling you, it ain't happening without righteousness. It has to happen this way. You can't save anything of liberty or freedom without righteousness. Captain Moroni would never have been able to accomplish what he did without righteousness. Okay, so to continue on, this is my testimony to you, and I desire to emphasize these simple thoughts. And I say to all my brothers and sisters, let us conquer ourselves and then go and conquer all the evil that we see around us as far as we possibly can. And we will do it without using violence. We will do it without interfering with the agency of men or women. We will do it by persuasion, by long-suffering, by patience, and by forgiveness and love unfeigned, by which we will win the hearts, the affections, and the souls and the children of men to the truth as God has revealed it to us. We will never have peace, nor justice, nor truth, until we look to the only true fountain for it and receive it from the fountain head. Absolutely. If we want peace in this world, we must get it from righteousness. Now, there used to be a symbol in our country, and it still is, actually, but there are so many people who have demeaned this symbol. But there is a symbol in our country that stood for justice and stood for truth and was a very unionizing, a very collective symbol for everybody. It was a symbol to the nations, and it still is a symbol to the nations, yet we've had so many disparage on it. There you go. Old Glory. To me, the flag still means something. To me, the flag still means justice and truth, and to me, the flag still means that the Constitution is there, upheld by the liberty of the people, upholding the liberty of the people by their righteousness. The Constitution cannot survive without righteousness, nor can our country survive without righteousness. It's connected. Our land is connected to righteousness. If we don't worship the God of our land, Jesus Christ, if we don't follow him, we will be wiped out. It makes that clear in the Book of Mormon. So Joseph F. Smith ends with, this is the last paragraph I'm going to read. I'm not going to read about women's clothing. Y'all figure that out. I'm not going to tell you what to wear. I'm going to tell you, though, that sometimes if you walk into the temple wearing something that is a little showy, nope. You've already ruined the experience for me, and no thank you. Anyway, Joseph F. Smith. I got distracted. I'm sorry. God bless you, my brethren and sisters. I thank you for your attendance For it has been a strength to us, and it has given us consolation and comfort to see you here and to know that you are here because you love the truth, just as we love it. And many of you love it even more than some of us know how to love it. For I know of people in the world who are true Latter-day Saints from the very core. They do not have many things to contend against in themselves either. It is easy for them to be Latter-day Saints, and truly the children of God, because they love the truth and they live pure lives, and many of them, I am satisfied of it. Many there be, however, who have a good deal to fight against within themselves. And some of us are not any better than we ought to be. Such will doubtless gain a great reward if they conquer. So that's where I end my discussion of Joseph F. Smith's closing remarks in the 1914 SemiAnnual General Conference. What I have found in my own personal life is that overcoming those things within ourselves, fighting our enemy within ourselves, starts and is easily... It starts with gratitude. Find something in the world to be thankful for every day. Find something in the world to be grateful for. All of those things start to disappear. A little bit, slowly, one at a time. I was never super grateful for indoor plumbing until I spent a month in New Orleans, Louisiana after Hurricane Katrina with the Idaho National Guard. After that experience, I walked away feeling extremely grateful for a lot of things that I had in my life. And something that simple, my toilet flushed today. Great. Those are things which might sound silly, but they are important. Another thing that I am grateful for as a result of that experience is the electricity that I get to use every day, the internet connection that we talk to each other every day, that we share information with every day. There's so much in this world to be thankful for. If it has to be something that simple that you're grateful for every day, then let it be that simple. But try to make it different every day. Don't do the same thing every day. Gratitude will bring an end to selfishness. Gratitude will bring an end to many of these bad habits. And I would encourage you all to do it. And then I forgot what I was going to say. It's not important anymore. So I guess that's going to be the end of this conversation. I know that Joseph F. Smith is a prophet of God. We don't hear that often these days, but everyone from Joseph Smith all the way through to Russell M. Nelson is a prophet of God. And I can say that, and I know that, because if at any point along the way there is one that you're like, oh, he's not really a prophet. Oh, well, guess what? None of the rest of them are. It's all or nothing with this. The keys of the priesthood are passed on or they are not. There is nothing in the middle. So if there's one of these men that you have issues with, study them, read their words, and find something about them to love, because there's something to love about all of them. I'll leave you with this message with you about peace, about finding love in our leadership. I leave it with you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.